Vijaya Gadde is the chief lawyer at Twitter. This is the woman who was responsible for kicking Trump off the platform. This is also the woman who suppressed the Hunter Biden story. A very powerful attorney at Twitter. She's been at Twitter a long time, and she's in charge of the whole content moderation operation. Well, delightful report yesterday in Politico. Twitter's top lawyer reassures staff cries during meeting about Musk takeover. She's crying. Oh, it's horrific. It's horrible. Now let's pause for a moment and think about this. She's not crying because she is being restricted. She's not crying because any of her friends are being restricted or suppressed. She's crying because she's being prevented from restricting and banning other people. In other words, this is not the weeping of the victim. It's the weeping of the perpetrator. Kind of reminds me of the scene in the Shawshank Redemption. You remember that vicious prison guard who would beat people up and enjoyed it, took a certain kind of sadistic pleasure in it. But when he's busted at the end of the movie, oh no, they got, suddenly this big strong man is reduced to tears. Well, that's basically the political, Vijaya Gadde is the political equivalent of this guy. And if you remember, this is a woman I've mentioned on the podcast before. She came up with a fabulous here in the sense of made up story about her family's encounter with the KKK. And I went on the podcast and went, hey, Vijaya, you know what? Give me the contact information. I'll verify it, whether this story is true. Dead silence, not a word. Why? Because she was obviously trying to get some civil rights points for herself and make it sound like she's some budding Martin Luther King and her family was like struggling for racial justice in the style of Montgomery and Selma. Now, interesting changes already at Twitter. Conservative accounts are surging. In fact, this is a guy with the bulwark, so he's a never Trumper, and he's mad about this. But he notices AOC is down 27,000 followers, Maddow's down 18,000, Colbert's down 21,000, Matt Gaetz is up 25,000, I'm up 41,000, Marjorie Taylor Greene is up 41,000. And he's acting like this is like very fishy, as if, Elon Musk is adding subscribers. No, they're just removing the banning algorithms. So you had all these little freaks at Twitter, and what they were doing is manipulating the dials. Let's boost Colbert, let's boost AOC, let's shut down D'Souza. And now that Musk is coming into the building, they're like, we don't want our fingerprints all over this, so let's stop doing that. Let's get hands off the dials. And of course, what's happening now is that people are getting the natural traction that their own posts are attracting. Now, Elon Musk himself, who does not hesitate to tweet what is on now his own platform, very interesting couple of tweets that I want to examine for a moment. He goes, the extreme antibody reaction from those who fear free speech says it all. And isn't that true? These are people who are reacting like Dracula before a cross. And no one's even throwing holy water on them because no one's forcing them to listen to anyone. They can block anybody they want. It's just they hate the idea of other people being able to speak. In other words, there's a tyrannical impulse on the left that has now invaded the mainstream of the Democratic Party. Of course, it's all done under the pretext, we're suppressing disinformation. Well, first of all, disinformation is defined as whatever they don't agree with. That's disinformation. It's not as if they have a list of factual propositions that they're able to demonstrate with like Euclidean clarity that they're upholding. If so, I'd like to have a list of those factual demonstrations that supposedly the rest of us are denying. This is all complete nonsense and camouflage. The truth of it is they want to shut down their opponents from speaking. They've been able to do that. They're mad now that they can't do it. And here's Elon Musk calling for a different standard, which I think is the right standard for all social media platforms, namely this. If it's legal, you can say it. Yeah, it might offend some people, so what? Yeah, some people may not want to listen. Close your ears. Don't go on Twitter. Look somewhere else. Read a book. So this idea that you have a right not to be offended, guess what? You don't. I'll continue with Elon Musk here. By free speech, I simply mean that which matches the law. And then he goes on to make an interesting point. He's not making the sort of civil liberties point that we have a right to free speech regardless of what the majority says. Rather, he makes this point. He goes, I'm against censorship that goes far beyond the law. If people want less free speech, they will ask the government to pass laws to that effect. Therefore, going beyond the law is contrary to the will of the people. He's making kind of an ingenious argument, which is that if the collective will of the people was that certain types of speeches are out of bounds, let's just say, for example, extreme forms of obscenity or pornography, we just don't want that in our society, fine, pass a law that says that hardcore pornography can't be circulated, and that does reflect the will of the people. Whether or not you agree with the law, the idea here is that that was passed through the democratic process. That's the channel for the will of the people. And therefore, legality, Musk says, does reflect the will of the people, whereas what the left wants is not the will of the people. What they want is essentially an elite, them, having the decision to decide, well, that guy, we don't really like what he has to say. Let's restrict his expression. Let's dial this guy down. Let's shadow ban that guy. Let's kick this guy off the platform. All of that whole big sad and sick circus is now, thanks to Elon Musk, coming to an end.